Hello guys. How are you doing? Let me trust you're doing good wherever you are today. Before we start the discussion for today, I'd like us to talk about some few things concerning laptop repairs. Because of late, I have been receiving a lot of questions. Some people are asking me, keep fix. What actually do I need to have before I start doing the repair? Even my students, imagine, even my students who recently graduated, they are asking me, what do I have to know before? Because they are a bit let me say that I don't know whether can I say they are a bit scared because by the way out there when you start this or in any field or even before you start any job, sometimes you find yourself you are a bit feeling scary, and of course changes are always scary, but yeah, you must accept it anyway. So there are some few things I like to say or I like to answer. Before you start the repair, first of all, you need to be passionate. You need to be passionate about the repair, whichever the repair you're doing, be it the laptop repairs, be it the electronics repairs, or even the phone repairs. Yes, you need to have that passion to do it. Again, you need to be motivated because if you're not motivated about whatever you're doing, it will be a bit trickier for you to enjoy that job. And if you don't enjoy the job, I don't think you will do it with your whole heart. Yes, you need to do when you're motivated so that you do it wholeheartedly. So motivation, you must always be having an end game. There must be something you'll get out of it. You must be having a certain motivation for doing it. Some people do it to help others, which is very good. In fact, that should be your bottom line. Motivation you need to have is to help others, to serve people. Money will come later. You know, people will pay you because of what you deliver. Always, the clients, or, or every time you get paid. You get paid for the services you offered. You cannot be paid if you're not delivering whatever it is needed. So I said you must have the passion. You have to be passionate. Or you need also to be what? You need also to be motivated. Huh? Yes. Then number two, you need to have the skills. You need to have the skills, and those skills you cut them here. You cut them here on YouTube. You cut them here from wherever. You know, I know some of you are already working somewhere. You're already doing the repair somewhere. Maybe you have a small shop at your area, or your city, your town. I don't know wherever, or even some other people are working from home. So you can get those skills from wherever you are, the experience, or even you can watch the tutorials because here online on the YouTube there are so many tutorials about the electronics repairs. So you can watch a lot of videos that you put into practice. You practice at your place of work, and then at the end of it, you will have the skills. It is not a must that you joined the physical classes or you joined you attend the physical class so that you can get the skills. You can do it from your home. I know sometime we make the videos while doing the demonstrations because if you can watch my tutorials, I normally show the demonstration. I show measure this, test this, remove this way, you know. Yes, and after you watch that video, you can put it in practice from wherever you are. You can do it practically by yourself. And then in case you get stuck, you can always chat in the comment section. You can ask something, then I might answer you directly, or I might consider making a video answering your question. Then number two, you need to understand the architecture of the whichever the device you're working on. Be it the phone, motherboard, you need to understand the architecture. What is that motherboard made of? What are the components contained in that motherboard? What are the functions of whichever the component is in that motherboard? How is that motherboard designed? What are the main power lines? What are the secondary power lines? You need to understand all that. Even if it is the laptop motherboard, is it the TV motherboard, whichever the device you're working on, you need to understand the architecture of that motherboard. And that is exactly what you're going to discuss today. Because today, I like us to talk about the architecture of a laptop motherboard. What are the laptop motherboards entails? What are the components? What are the functions of those components? Because without you understanding the architecture of each and every device you're working on, it will be hard for you to fix that device. Because bottom line, you don't understand what you're working on. You don't understand any component within that motherboard. You don't know what does it do, how is it working, how does it work. And of course, once you understand the architecture, you need to incorporate your knowledge of architecture of the motherboard plus the knowledge of reading the schematics, interpreting the schematics, using the board view, all those resources about the you can use to fix the motherboard. Even you also need to understand to use the digital multimeter, because without you knowing to use the digital multimeter, I don't know how will you test the voltage flow. How will you test the short to the ground of the power lines? How will you test the components? It will be very hard for you to fix if you don't understand if you don't understand to use the resources available which are needed for you to fix that motherboard. And then another thing, you need also to focus on what you know. You know, sometimes working with these motherboards, you might find the case. Let's say you receive a problem, let's say an issue to do with charging, and yet you have no idea what are the circuits, what are the components responsible for charging, which are the lines for charging. You'll find somebody, let's say you're a technician, and then a customer reports a case of loose charging, and you have no idea what are the things which are responsible for charging. Then you'll find someone changing the memory for the motherboard, replacing the RAM with another one. Really, guys? Yes, you need to understand which are the components responsible for this and that and that. But if you don't understand, I will advise you to focus on the things you know. Yes, I'll advise you to focus on the things you do understand. If it means working on the charging and you have no idea how the charging works, what are the components responsible for charging, please don't try to fix things which you don't understand, because at the end of it, you will get discouraged and you will get demoralized. On top of that, you might end up even buying a motherboard for your customer, because at the end of it, you were to fix the laptop which was not charging. Maybe it's obvious. If it is not charging, it means it is working as a desktop. It is powering on with a power adapter. Now, you've tried to fix that, and then you end up killing that motherboard entirely. Now, the laptop is not even powering on. You'll find a customer complaining, no, 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 no. My laptop was working. I brought in powering on laptop. It was not only charging, and I was using it the way it was. So I need my laptop working exactly the way it was before. And then to now you end up tapping your table. My friend, I'm telling you for sure, you will buy a new motherboard or even a new laptop for that customer, which will be a liability in the business. You know, in business, we don't entertain liabilities. We only appreciate the assets. And if you end up getting more liabilities than the assets, probably you're losing it. So I'll advise you, whatever the problem, focus on those parts. If you don't know how to fix a certain case, please leave it. Forward that case. Tell the customer, no, 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 I can't fix this. I am so sorry. I will have fixed it, but find something to tell the customer. Tell him, oh, I'm so sorry. I am willing to fix it, but unfortunately, I don't have the spare part for this. Then maybe you're getting what I am saying. If you don't understand a certain case, if you don't know to fix a certain problem, please do not try to fix things which you don't understand. Yes, forward that problem. Now focus on the things you can fix. By doing that, you will find that your mind is free from pressure. Yes, you'll be free from pressure and you will be able to concentrate and focus on the things you can do best. Again, I like to advise that, in this field, it is not a must that every device, it is not a must that every device you receive, be it a laptop, be it a phone, be it a radio, be it a TV, bottom line, you're not the manufacturer. You're not the one who designed that motherboard from the beginning. On top of that, you're not the one responsible for that motherboard. In case if it dies, I said, if it dies, please, if you know you can fix it, fix it. If it doesn't work, release it, because at the end of it, these are electronics. These are motherboard, and we are all humans. We are not robots. Yes. If we are not able to fix the problem, we are so sorry. We replace that motherboard if it is the motherboard replacement. That is why it is good always to advise the customer accordingly. Because sometimes we try to fix a certain motherboard, and then the same motherboard, it can work, maybe it can work for a few days, and then it dies again. The customer comes back again. You will not be like you will not behave like a professional technician, because the customer also will feel like you're playing her. Some other problems are meant not to be fixed. They're beyond repair. They're beyond healing. Even a patient, if you go to a hospital, not all the patients who went to hospitals come back alive. Or even if it comes back alive, if he or she comes back alive, he might not, or she might not live longer. Not because the doctors were not able to fix it, but because that patient was beyond treatment. So there's some other motherboards which are beyond repair. That's why you need to release them to go and sleep in peace. So another thing, as a technician, you should always consider taking break. Maybe before lunchtime, make sure you went to at least 30 minutes break, so that you release the pressure in your brain. Because sometimes working with these motherboards, these components, they're very tiresome. Imagine doing the rebolling for these high seas, for example, all of them, and then maybe also you find it that these things it involves a lot of brain, using brain and using all the common senses, your eyes, your feeling, because you need to feel the motherboard, either there's any heat, the energy, maybe desoldering some components, the straining of your eyes, because you might be working under a lot of lights. You know, the brain itself is working hard. Sometimes you find yourself inhaling a lot of fumes from the solder. So those things also might not be good for your health. So consider taking a break after at least 30 minutes before lunchtime. So in a day, just make sure you take about 1 hour break, and that will help you to focus. Another thing, just make sure whatever you can deliver it best. Deliver best of what you can do. Whatever you can do, leave it. It's not a must that you fix everything. Fix what you can fix. What you can't fix, leave it. Leave whatever you can't fix, just leave it. And then another thing, never stop learning. I always tell my students, even after graduating, never stop learning. Keep watching my tutorials. Keep watching whatever the tutorials you can find about the laptop repair. Compare notes, because you can't always rely on me alone. You need to have a lot of widespread knowledge. You can watch my tutorials, watch somebody else's tutorials, compare their skills. You can also invent your own things. Sometimes you find shortcomings with the design of these motherboards. So sometimes during the repair, we find ourselves creating new things, inventing new ways to fix. And that will be nice. You'll keep challenging yourself. And again, never stop practicing. Never stop practicing to do these repairs, because every day is a learning day. If you stop learning, the technology will move very fast. And in the next like 5 years or 10 years, you'll find yourself not able to fix any motherboard, because at that time we will have so many motherboards, so many changes, so many things, new designs. So if you just rely on the old models, you will find yourself getting knocked out from the market, and you might not be able to fix any motherboard. For example, if you have somebody who learned laptop repairs like 10 years ago, and that person never improved, never upgraded knowledge, he just learns once and then stopped. Right now, these days, that person, I am very sure, he cannot fix a laptop of 10th generation and above. 10th generation, 11th generation, 12, 13. Why? Because we have now so many new things. We have integrated graphics. We have what? We have LBDDRs. We have onboard CPU and so many other new things in the market. and that person will not be able to fix any latest laptop. We have tiny components, and like long time ago, we used to have so bigger components. You know? Okay, but don't understand because I wasn't there. And right now, I only focus on the latest laptops. I can't fix the old models or the old school laptops. Not because it is hard to fix, no, because sometimes I might not be able to get the spare parts because even the manufacturers they stopped manufacturing the replacement parts. Yes, so many things are going out of the market. So make sure again you yourself is moving with the market, right? And don't, as I said, challenge yourself with new things. Invent your own things. So right now, I like us to discuss about the architecture of a laptop motherboard. A laptop motherboard contains so many things, which all of them works hand in hand. And without one of the components, you'll find that some work will stop. Inside the laptop motherboards, we have the components which are responsible for processing data, whichever the data, even the graphics or the imagery, all of them. We have the components which are responsible for memory and storage. Components like the RAMs, like SSD for storage and the RAM for the memory. We have the components who are responsible for networking. We have the components who are responsible for power supply. We have the components who are responsible for filtering power to ensure the smooth power flow. We have the components who are responsible for protections, components like capacitors. We have the components who are responsible for regulation of power. And even the other components are responsible for step down. And then you also have the power lines. The power lines are the route or the pathways for the power, where the power follows. We have a route, we have a channel or a line where the power moves through it. From one component to the other, you need to have that junctions or that link between those components or among those components. And also we have the connectors. The connectors are used to connect the external devices like the keyboard, the SSD, the USB, all of those components, right? The switches, the touchpads, and all those. So we are going to do the discussions. The processing components, number one, we have what's called the CPU. The CPU is inside this heatsink. So this is the heatsink. This heatsink, this is the like heat tubes. They are responsible for cooling. They are ensuring the heat from the CPU is distributed towards this side and then it is pumped out through the this ventilation by the fan. Yes, here there's a fan here. There's a fan here which helps in pumping out the hot air and bringing in the cold air. The CPU is a component like this one. So this entire here, this is the CPU. So this is the CPU for this motherboard, for example. As you can see, this CPU it has two sections. There is this section and then there is this smaller one. This bigger one is the main CPU itself. This is where the processing occurs. So this is where this processing occurs. And then here, this chipset also. This is what's called the PCH. The PCH is the platform control hub. This platform control hub contains also two more chipsets inside. The whole generation laptop, you'll find that they used to have PCH broken into two, whereby we will have the node bridge. There's a chipset called the node bridge. I wish I had one of those whole generation motherboard. I do not have because, by the way, they're very old. And I say those motherboards are very old. I don't have any. I don't have any. Maybe I have one of the laptops which this it is not even open. So I am not going to do that. After all, we are not going to be fixing the old model laptops. When I receive, okay, I am sorry to say this, yeah. When I receive old model laptops, I normally tell my customer, oh, I'm sorry, I can't fix this one because I am very engaged with these latest series. So here we have two main chipsets which are called the North Bridge and the South Bridge. The North Bridge is a chipset. It's also called the MCH. We have inside the PCH we have MCH and ICH. Now, MCH is the memory control hub. MCH, memory control hub, and then ICH is input control hub. So the MCH is the north bridge and the ICH is the south bridge. So the north bridge is responsible for ensuring that this CPU communicates with the RAM. Inside this metallic thing here is the RAM. Here is there is onboard RAM here. There is onboard RAM. As you can see, it is written DDR shield. So this is the shield for the DDR. You can pull it out. You can see. You can pull it out. So these are the chips for the memory. These are the chips for the memory. This is the RAM. This is 16 GB RAM. So these chipsets, you can see there are four. And we say this is 16 GB RAM. So meaning each chip here contains what? The 4 GB memory. So we have 4 GB, 4 GB, 8, 4 GB, 4 GB, 8. That is total of 16. So this memory, so these chips are called NANDs. NANDs. These are the NAND storage chips. So as you can see, even with this memory, so this is another memory. However, this one is removable. This one is removable, but this one is on board. When you hear on board RAM is this one. There's no room for expansion. If you want to increase the capacity for this RAM, nevertheless, you buy another motherboard. But for these ones, you can always improve the capacity for this. As you can see, this one it is written there. This is 8 GB RAM, and I believe this other one also is 8 GB RAM. Even this one is 88 GB RAM. It is written there. So these two, you can see it is written there. So these two of them, the total had up to 16. So I can have 8 GB RAM there, and then I can also have 8 GB there. So how many nans does this one have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And then the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, 8. So it means that 8 should be divided by the 16, 16 nans. It will means like each of the each of the nan has about 500 MB, something like that. Anyway, I don't know exactly do they distribute the capacity there. But bottom line, this is the RAM for 8 GB. This is the 8 GB. If I want to upgrade this RAM, I'll either remove this 8 GB RAM and then I put in 16 GB RAM. I don't know whether I have 16 GB RAM here. Let me check this one. Okay, I don't know. I believe this one is 16 GB RAM. So I can no 1.2 voltage. So this is 8 GB. So okay, yes. This is 16 GB. So I can put this one in here. I can put this one in here. So now my memory. So let me put it this way. So I remove this one for 8 GB, and then I replace with 16 GB. So now I have a total of 16 plus 8, which is 24. So I have 24 GB RAM. So the memory for this motherboard now is 24. Let me just put this one aside so that you do not forget it here. So even I put it back 8, 8, 16. Anyway, so as I was saying, this is the onboard RAM, and then the other one is removable RAM. So as I was saying, so this is the NOT bridge which is inside there, ensures the communication between this and the RAM, right? Yes. We also have the soft bridge, that ICH now. The soft bridge, which is also inside here, is responsible for ensuring that all the input devices are functional. It controls all the input devices, starting from the HDMI, the screen, the USB ports, the because this is the connector for the screen, because it's also input device. The keyboard, the touchpad, the backlight, the battery also. Anything you plug into your laptop, the SSD, anything you plug into your laptop, it is the responsibility for the ICH, that is the sound bridge, to control whatever the device you plug in. Right? Yes, that is why whenever you have a shorted flash, or even the whenever you plug in anything which is shorted, and if that happens that whatever you plug in kills your laptop, normally this component gets shorted. Why? Because inside here we have the sound bridge, and that sound bridge controls whatever the external you plug in. Even if it is a shorted component, it will short this side. That's why most of the time, even if I receive a laptop from the DJ, DJ normally risk the laptops by plugging in heavy machines, heavy speakers to their laptops directly. If that whatever speaker you plug in, or whichever the thing you plug in is drawing a lot of power, and it happens that power is sent directly through the USB or through the audio cable or through the Type C, it will go directly into the sound bridge, which is here. And if that short reaches here, we are so sorry. There's nothing we can do about that. You will just have to buy a new motherboard or buy a new machine. Because once we have this getting shorted, it means the brain of that laptop is dead. Because you can see this chipset is one thing, they are together with the CPU. And the only option for that is either to replace the CPU, which I don't know how we can do that. Sometimes we don't always do this. Why? Because it is time consuming and it is not worth the risk. Even if I manage to change that that CPU for you, I'll charge you even more than the cost of the motherboard itself. That's why whenever the CPU is shorted or whenever these chipsets are shorted, you find that you only advise the customer to buy a new motherboard. Because if I try to fix it, I might use a lot of time fixing it. Meaning I'll have to charge you a lot of money. And that money might not be even enough to buy a new motherboard. That is why the only option for you is to buy a new motherboard and then move on with your life. Now, apart from the CPU, so we also have what's called the GPU. So with this laptop, as you can see, it doesn't have another chipset. It doesn't have another chipset. Meaning inside here also, we will have the GPU, and that GPU is what's called integrated GPU. It is integrated because it is found inside. It is found inside this CPU. So it is inside here. That is why it is called integrated. Other than integrated, we also have what's called dedicated GPU. Let me show you. I have another motherboard here with the dedicated GPU. Give me 1 second to remove this. Okay. In fact, the heatsink is open. So this is the heatsink. You can see this one is heavy, big. Yeah? Because this heatsink is coming from heavy motherboard for the gaming laptop. So this one is from the gaming laptop. As you can see how heavy it is, very big. So this is the gaming motherboard, very heavy, very thick. Here we have the CPU, and then inside the CPU we have the CPU itself. We also have what? Can you see the line of separation? We have this smaller PCH. So the PCH. So inside this PCH we have the node bridge and the sound bridge. Now, apart from the CPU, because we had already explained about that, we have what's called the GPU. So here we have now dedicated GPU, this chipset. Can you see this? So this is dedicated GPU. How do you know this is GPU and this is not? This is the CPU. The difference is that this GPU, it has some other chips around it. Can you see we have other chips here? These are the NANDs. These are the memory for the CPU, for the GPU. So the GPU always have the memory, their personal memory, and these memories they are not called the RAMs, but they are called VRAMs. VRAMs stand for Video Random Access Memory. But the CPU depends on the actual memory for this laptop. So yeah, the RAM slots for the RAMs. So you insert your RAM this way. You insert this one, then uh you flip it to lock inside. Now this one cannot be fixed here because this is the PC4, and then this laptop needs the PC5 memory. Yes. I will explain about the RAMs later, but I want you to understand. So this is a wrong type of RAM. It cannot fit here because this is the PC4, but here we need the PC5. So this CPU uses PC5 RAM. So the memory for this will be here, will be inserted here. But the memory for this, it is here, this NAND. So this is the memory for the GPU. So the GPU will process the images. Once they are ready, can you see the channel? Can you see the lines, very tiny lines running from the CPU all the way to the running from the GPU all the way to the CPU? Because after the images are ready for display, it is sent directly here. It is sent directly through these channels towards the CPU. Once the CPU receives the raw and ready-made images from the GPU, it will just send them directly to the screen through this. I believe the connector for the screen. Yes, it sends them directly to the screen. Are you understanding the shit? Yes, let me hope you do. You do understand. Now, apart from that, so those are the processing. So these are the processing components: the CPU, the third bridge, GPU, the processing components. Then we have the memory. Memory are these RAMs. We've already explained about them. We have the VRAM and the RAM itself. So are the memories. Then, apart from that, we said we also have the components which are responsible for power supply. It doesn't matter whether it is power from the main power lines, it is power from the step down or secondary lines, whichever the power lines it is. So we have the components responsible for that power transmission from the port, from the input line, all the way until the voltage reaches where? To the CPU, the GPU, to whichever the component needs that power. So those components, number one, we have the inductor. Okay, not inductor. We are, of course, we have the power port. Yeah, the power port. We have the power port connecting here. So it's the connector for the power. And then from here, you'll find that at the back here we have an inductor. So this is an inductor. This is a very big one. You can see this one. So this is a very big inductor because this is a heavy laptop, a heavy motherboard, which needs a lot of power. That inductor, you can see even the MOSFETs are put in pairs. So this is a MOSFET 1, MOSFET 1. It needs two of them so that they can support each other to deliver a high current flowing, because this is a very heavy motherboard which needs high current flow. And then MOSFETs 2. You can see also MOSFET 2. They are also doubled because we need high current to flow through. And then apart from that, we have the fuse. I don't know whether this is a fuse. I believe the fuse is in the other side. Really? No. So all the way from here, once the voltage goes past these MOSFETs, the two MOSFETs, it will be sent directly to this current sense resistor. Yes, the current sense resistor, which receives power from where? Which receives power from the two MOSFETs. So this heavy current sense resistor is the one which channels the power to the line for the interseals, which will create the main power line. And I believe these are the components responsible for that. Then from here, the voltage is sent where? The power is sent to the main motherboard. So as I was saying, these are the components which are responsible for the power input. Then apart from that, we will have other components. We will have other components like the BD controllers. Let me use another motherboard because with these other motherboards, it is very clear. It is very clear for us to see those BD controllers. So here we have an inductor, we have the diode, then we'll have MOSFET 1, MOSFET 2 somewhere. Let me just check them. Okay, from here, this is the diode which takes power, then MOSFET 1 and MOSFET 2. Then from here, the power is sent through this resistor 1 and then this circuit. This is the circuit. So this is high side MOSFET, low side MOSFET. These are the MOSFET for the input. Through this inductor which generates the main power line, then we have the high side MOSFET output and then low side MOSFET output. Then from there, the power is sent through this current sense resistor. Then from here, it is sent where? It is sent to the motherboard. From there, it is sent to the motherboard. So once the voltage goes past here, it will now join the main power line. The main power line, then we have the step down line. The step down line is the input. So these ICs, these are the BD controllers, these tiny ones. All the ICs which are there before the stacked inductors, they are called the BD controllers. Why? Because they do deliver power. So these ones are monolithic MOSFETs or monolithic drivers. This one's also for stepping down power for the CPUs. So this one, this one. So each and every line going releasing power to the CPU, they have these monolithic drivers. So these are the monolithic drivers which are responsible for stepping down the main power. If it is 12 voltage or 13 or 19, it will be stepped down by these ICs, and then it is sent past these inductors. When it is maybe 1 voltage or 0.8, it is sent to the CPUs. So all these circuits here depends on these monolithic drivers to step down to the main power line, and that it is sent through these inductors to the CPU. Apart from that, you can, as you can see, each and every inductor, it has a BD controller just beside it. That is why this one is responsible for stepping down the voltage from here. That voltage enters here when it is 19, and then it comes out here when it is the needed voltage. If it is needed by this card, it will be stepped down to the voltage which is desired by that card. If it is needed by a certain connector, if it is needed by the BIOS, if it is needed by the SIO, whichever the component which needs power, it is the responsibility for that BD controllers to step down that voltage and then release it to the respective area where it is needed. And then same case applies to this one. We have the power port coming in, the inductor, the MOSFET 1, MOSFET 2, current sense resistor, the high side MOSFET input, low side MOSFET input, and then we have the inductor which generates the main power line, and then we have the low side MOSFET output, the high side MOSFET output. This high side MOSFET output is the one which released power. The high side MOSFET is the one which released power to the either to the circuit or out of the circuit. The low side is the one, is that MOSFET which connects power to the ground, and it's always helping in filtering the power flow. So the high side here, the high side output, it will output the voltage which will be sent through this current sense resistor, and then it is sent to the main power line. And the main power lanes are the input, this side, before any IC. Before any IC, those are the main power line. So here, the positive sides of this, so here is the main power line. The voltage enters here when it is 19, and then it is stepped down maybe to 3.3, and then it is sent through this inductor and then released wherever it is needed. Same case here, here is the main power line. The step down IC, this is a BD controller. Then the voltage is released here when it is 5.0, or whichever the voltage which is needed by whichever the component which needs that 3.0. Same case applies here. We have the main power line coming this way, and then it is stepped down from here. It is sent through this inductor when it is 1.2. You know, it comes here when it is 1.2, then it is regulated by this inductor, and then it is sent to the where? This one is for the RAMs, I believe. So this is the CPU. Can you see the difference between this CPU and the other one? So this one, it has a tape here as a seal. And then the other one, you can see this one is sealed, this metallic seal here. So that tells you this is from higher generation processor than this one. This is a bit lower. Maybe this 8th gen, maybe this 8th gen processor. And then here is the 10th gen processor. Anyway, apart from the power delivery lines, we also have the regulators. These inductors are responsible for regulating the current flow. They're responsible for regulating the current flow, all of them. Whichever the inductor, is it the stacked inductor, is it the thin film inductor? And then, apart from the regulators, we also have protection components. Protection components are these capacitors. All the capacitors are the protection components. For example, tantalum capacitor. So the tantalum capacitor is a protection component. The MLCC capacitor, so this is a multi-layer ceramic capacitor, is also for protection. That's why they are placed across the main power line. You can see the lines for the power. So capacitors are placed across the power lines. Whichever the power lines, is it the secondary power lines, is it the main power lines? I know you might be confusing yourself. Why am I saying the secondary power lines and the main power lines? What is the difference? The main power lines is these power lines which connects the main power generated here, and then so any input line here is the main power line. But after here, after the main power line, when the voltage has been stepped down to this other side, it will become the secondary power line. Sometimes you find these secondary power lines, it reaches a point also which need to be stepped down below that secondary line. So there now we will say it is tertiary. So we have the main power line, secondary. So after the main power line, it has been stepped down to secondary. And then sometimes we find certain lines which need to step down the same secondary voltage to a smaller voltage. That's now what we refer to as tertiary power line. Now, having said that, I like you also to understand, as you can see, this big truck. Can you see the big trucks here? These lanes that symbolize the main big or bigger lane. So it means these are the main power lines. It carries more voltages. Can you see the big trucks? Apart from the big trucks, you can see also there are tiny ones. There are these tiny ones. Not as tiny so much, but they are still tiny. So those are the secondary. Apart from that, you have very tiniest. Can you see these very tiniest ones? So these tiniest ones, most of them still, you might find some of them carrying voltage, but most of them do carry what? Do carry the signals. Now, this tiniest one here, as you can see, these slots, there was supposed to be a GPU here. However, the manufacturer decides not to solder in a GPU. So this motherboard is missing the dedicated GPU here. Some of the motherboards you will find them having the dedicated GPU, and those motherboards, they are called the Z-books. They are called the Z-books. However, so this since this motherboard was never having the GPU, so it means it is using the integrated GPU inside here. So the GPU, the dedicated GPU was supposed to be here, and then we have the VRAMs which was supposed to be soldered here, but they never soldered them. That is why there's this room for soldering the GPU and there's the VRAMs. So these tiny lines, can you see these tiny lines going into the CPU or going into the chipsets? Whichever the chipsets, there is these so small tiny lines. So most of them, they are responsible for signal transmission and data transmission from one point or from one component to the other. You know, without the signals and the data, you'll find that some other components will fail to work because it needs those signals to initiate the powering on or to initiate the power transmission or whatever the process it needs to do. It must have the signals. And then apart from that, we said we have the RAM slots. So these are the RAM slots, and these RAM slots also varies. As you can have a RAM slot for PC1, you can have a RAM slot for PC3, PC2, PC4, or PC5. The latest RAM which we have in the market is the PC5. And so most of the latest generation from, let's say, 12 gen, 13 gen, you'll find them using the PC5 RAM. Then back a little bit, a generation, let's say from 11 gen, then gen, 8 gen, and the 7 gen. You find them having even the 6 gen. You find them using the PC4. The PC4 is not far from PC5, but the speed, there's some difference between the PC1, PC2, PC3, PC4, PC5. I think I'll consider making another video discussing about the RAMs. I'll make a video discussing about the RAM so that you understand fully what is the difference when you say PC1, PC2, PC3, or PC5. They have very big difference between them. They are not the same. They are not the same. They have a very big difference. So, as I have said, the most of the 13 gen, the 12 gen laptops, you find them using the PC5. PC5 is very performing, very powerful, high performing RAM, high speed. Now, PC4, it has a speed, but not higher than PC5, but it is higher than PC3. Same case to PC3. PC3, we have two types of PC3s. We have the PC3 alone, and then you have the PC3L. PC3L is a bit improved version or upgraded memory for the PC3. However, it is not speed, it's not much upgraded than PC4. So it has higher speed, higher than PC3, but lower than PC4. The PC2 the same. It does higher speed than PC1, but not higher than PC3. PC3 is have more speed than PC2. Okay, that's a big difference. You find that the PC1 uses more power but less performing. PC2 uses less power than PC1, but more power than PC3. And again, you find that the PC2 is higher performing than PC1, but less performing than PC3. Same case applies to the PC3. Uses more power than PC3L, but less performing than PC3L. Same case, PC3L, less power than PC3, but more performing. No, less power than PC4, but more performing than PC3. PC4 also uses lesser power than PC3L. Uses lesser power than PC3L, and it's also higher performing than PC3L. But it uses more power than PC5, and then it is less performing than PC5. And the other things also, the physical appearance, you'll find that they are not physical the same. I believe a little bit. There's something you've catched about the RAMs. Apart from the RAM slots, we have other connectors. We have other connectors like this one. This is the connector for the V1 card. V1 card is a card which is normally used to connect the SIM card. It connects the network for the SIM card. This one is a bit bigger. It will go up to here. And then we have the network card here, or the wireless card, or WLAN card. So this one is a small card which is used to connect the wireless connection for the for the Wi-Fi and the what? For the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. Here is that card. Okay. In fact, I have others here. So this is the card itself. So these are the cards. So the wireless card. We call them wireless card. This is for Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. And then V1 card. Yes. Even the V1 card I have here. Let me show you. Let me show you. This was the V1 card. You can see this one is a bit bigger than this. This one is a bit bigger than this because this one is for what? I said this one is for connecting this SIM card network. You can see it goes there. And now these cards are not there. We can say they are model specific. When I say model specific, it will mean each model of the motherboard requires a specific card. You can't use any card to fix. You can't use any RAM. But for this card, wireless card, each model needs its own wireless card. Some other motherboards, they have inbuilt wireless card like this one. This one has an inbuilt wireless card. And if this card gets spoiled or get damaged or get faulty, with this motherboard, there's nothing I can do. Yes, if this card is faulty, I don't know. Yes, I can replace, but a bit tricky, yeah? But we'll have another. We will try to fix it. If you are not able to fix it, we'll just let it go. So that is it. We have the connectors. And these other connectors, we have other connectors for here is for the camera, I believe. Normally it is written somewhere. Or it could be for and then here we have the connector for the display. We have the connector which connects the daughter board because we could have the daughter board somewhere. I also have a connector here. This one was supposed to be for the speaker, but it has been knocked out. This is the connector for, this is the slot for the SSD, so the SSD connector. And of course, each and every motherboard has the part number. So this is the part number for this LA-J442P. So the model number for this motherboard. If you search it, you'll find that this is 1040G7. Here is the connector for the battery. So this is the battery connector. Here, I believe this one is for the backlight keyboard. The connector for the backlight keyboard. I don't know what the connector is this one for. So you need to understand each and every connector. What is it role? Some other connectors have been labeled. So this one is JFP1. So I believe I don't know whether it's fingerprint or what. KB1 for the J represents the connector. JKB. KB is for the keyboard. JKB. So this one is for fingerprint. JFP. So for the fingerprint. JTP. TP is for the touchpad. Connector for the touchpad. J what? JB what? Normally this should be the battery. Yes. Yeah. Power J. So the power connector. JP. JKPL. J keyboard light. So the keyboard backlight. and then I can't see the writing for this. So anyway, most of these connectors, they are labeled, so you will not get confused. However, not all of them are also labeled, meaning you also need to understand if they are not labeled, you need to understand it is for what. If you can't get it, just put it back to the casing, then try to connect, try to see. This connector is for what? You see, it's going to the touchpad. So you'll understand that is for the touchpad. This one, fingerprint. This one, keyboard. This one, switch. This one, this, that one, that. This one, camera. This one, this. So that you don't end up connecting the connector for the keyboard into the, you can see the keyboard and the screens. They are somehow the same. They're almost equal in size. So that you don't end up connecting the keyboard into this connector for the for the display. Just make sure you put it back to the casing. Try to relocate it to see which connector is that. You confirm it is for the display for the screen. If it is not labeled, maybe you can manually write them. You can manually label it. Put it back there, then you can write this is screen, this is keyboard, this is that, this is this. So apart from those, we also have other things like the HDMI, the ports. We have the type C ports. We have HDMI, USB ports, the audio ports. You need to understand all of those ports. This other one, we have the dock station port, the Ethernet port, HDMI, USB, the audio port, audio jack. This one is for the SIM card. Type C port for power, then looping port. And again, this Type C port, sometimes you find them confusing. There are some other Type C which not needs to use. You don't have to plug in the charger for the charging. You know, sometimes some other people try to be super creative by plugging in a Type C charger into the Type C line for data. Normally, most of the time, you find that the casing of the laptop, if it is having Type C, you find that the casing, they have indicated whether it is the port for charging or it's the port for data transfer. They always indicate. They always indicate. So don't be mad. Don't you end up plugging in any Type C you get anywhere for your laptop to charge with it. My friend, you will buy a new motherboard. Okay, anyway, do that. So long as you bring the job to me to fix for you your motherboard, and I'll charge you a lot of money. You will pay me to fix your laptop. Eh? With this other motherboard, as you can see, it has what? It has the Type C port, there's the USB port, the HDMI, and then you have the connector here, which will connect to the daughter board. We will have also the daughter board from the other side, and then it will be connecting to that. Now, apart from that, we talked about the power lines. The power lines are these tracks. You can see these routes. These are the pathways for the power. And then apart from that, we have these other small, tiny lines. These small, tiny lines, you can see, I don't know where this is going. They are for signal transmission, data transmission, and all of those things. If you see a heavy truck like this one, so that one tells you that's the power line. This one's very heavy. This very heavy truck. And also we have the tiny one. We have a bit tiny one, and then you have the tiniest of all. So this bit tiny, maybe you find them having some small voltages like 5.0, 3.3, 1.8. And then the tiniest of all, you find that having like 0.1, 0.2 voltage, or even having nothing to do with the voltage. It is for signal transmissions. So as I was saying, we have the LBDDR RAMs. So these ones are onboard RAMs. We have other ICs like this one. This is a new button. This IC is like this one. Can you see this? So this is the general prefect of power supply. This one is responsible for ensuring that the power circulates in the entire motherboard. This one is for power. So each and every power IC within the motherboard, it is the responsibility for this chip to ensure that that power IC has been enabled for it to send out power, for it to control voltages in and out. Same case, each and every motherboard must have that. So as you can see, this one has a lot of paste in it, but this is still another new button. We have several types. You have new buttons. You have I don't know ITE. We have what? So this is also a new button. We have SMSE. We have what again? The new buttons are so common. Never know are so common. Even Lenovo, you find that Lenovo they do have what they do have the Lenovo. They came up with their own power management chips. Apart from this prefect, we call it prefect. It's called the SIO. So that is a system input output. It also controls all the inputs, all the input components. It controls the power going in and out of those components. Apart from this IC, which I said it controls the power, we also have another IC. We call it the charging IC. That charging IC is called intersil. This one. And this is the responsible. It is responsibility to create the power which is sent to the main power link. So if you have like 19 or 12 or 13, whichever the voltage which comes out here with this circuit, it is the responsibility for this intersil or the BQ. Sometimes you find other laptops they use a BQ. It is the response of that BQ or that intersil to ensure that the voltage for the main power line has been generated and then it is sent to the motherboard. Even though this one is responsible for generating this voltage which is sent to the motherboard, still it also relies on this new button. So this one needs to enable this for this to switch the voltages here. So meaning without this one cannot be able to do what? This one cannot switch anything here. Apart from that, we also have a component called the BIOS chip. The BIOS chip is a chip which contains a system firmware. It contains a firmware called what? The BIOS firmware. That BIOS firmware is a basic input-output system. It is a software which is inside here. That software, it is stored in a flash, in form of a flash. Sometimes you find that software getting corrupted, whereby we end up flashing it out, that software, and then programming a new software inside it. That is why you find sometimes you hear sometimes we say we program the BIOS or we write the BIOS. So it means flashing out the content inside this chip and then programming a new system, a new software inside it. This BIOS chip contains that BIOS firmware. That BIOS firmware, it helps in booting the system. It helps in powering on the system. Apart from that, it also ensures that these chips, for example, the EC or this SIO, is enabled. So it is also responsible of this BIOS chip to enable this SIO and to enable any other power IC within the system. Now, these BIOSes, we find them in different sizes because we could have a very big BIOS. This is the main BIOS. Apart from the main BIOS chip, we also have other BIOS chips here, which contains other firmwares. So these BIOS chips, they also helps in booting process. They also help in power transmission, powering on system, and all those things which are needed, all the basic information which is needed by the system. You can see each and every motherboard must have this BIOS. So this is the BIOS chip, and then these are the sub-buttons or the EC BIOS for this. So this is the main BIOS. As you can see, the main BIOS has been highlighted. You find that it has been made bolder. There's something unique about it. This one is so big, and then around it, there's been marked with heavy lines or heavy colors or heavy thing. Even the labeling, you might find that it is written BIOS 1. You can see it is written BIOS 1. It means that is the BIOS number 1. This is the main BIOS. And then here you see 3. So this IC chip, and then UT9. UT9. So they have a different labeling for you to differentiate between the main BIOS and the subordinate BIOS. Even this one, the BIOS which is supposed to be here, it's the big BIOS chip, meaning here was the main chip. We have other chips like this one, and then we have another chip which was supposed to be here, which is a bit smaller. Yes, it's up to you to understand them. And then we also have the empty spaces like this one. This one tells you there was supposed to be a certain component here, but the manufacturer saw it wise not to put it because maybe it wasn't necessary. So not every component which has been imprinted in the plain motherboard is required. So sometimes you find the people implanting these components, they find that it is not necessary to put a certain component there, then they leave it the way it is. Sorry for that. and then they left it empty. For example, this one, there was supposed to be a GPU here, but they saw it wise not to put the GPU because it realized this laptop might be relying on the integrated GPU inside this CPU. So they do away with the dedicated. But some other motherboards, you find them having this. They do have the CPU and that have also the GPU and the VRAMs there. Most of those motherboards, I said, we call them the set books. So the set book, that's why set books are more preferred because they do have dedicated. You know, dedicated, it has a dedicated graphics which only focuses on enhancing the images of your laptop. But if your laptop is just using a Intel CPU, it will mean inside it we have dedicated. You know, the difference is that the laptop with integrated GPU, it will relies on this normal RAM to process images. And you know, these normal RAMs are the RAMs for the CPU. They are not designed for images. So they might not put enough focus on creating clear images. They'll just create the basic images and then it displays for you. But this one is specifically designed for images. So meaning it will focus on creating the images. So here you will get a lot of good quality images. That's why the laptops with the GPU, it is normally preferred by the people who do the video production or the photo editing thing, right? So guys, I don't want to talk a lot of things. I believe within this discussion of about 1 hour, let me know if you were able to understand something, and I will really, really appreciate if you are cutting something, guys. Please, my people, in case you haven't subscribed to our channel, please, guys, I'm still requesting you, my people, guys, please subscribe to our channel, share with your friends, give us some comments. And if you're interested in learning about laptop repairs, I said we also offer the teaching. We also offer the teaching, both online and physical. So whichever the module you're interested in joining, please, you can join us and learn with us. If you have an issue with your laptop, don't forget, you can just bring it to us. We can fix it for you. You can send it or you can bring it yourself. We can fix it for you and then give it to you back after we save it. Thank you so much, guys. And please do not forget to subscribe and see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye bye.